It's the Smart Driving Cars podcast. Thanks for joining us. This edition is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alain Kornhauser. Hi, Alain.
Hey, good morning, Fred. Good morning, everybody.
And we are happy to welcome Compass Transportation and Technology President and Founder, Dick Mudge. Thanks for joining us, Dick.
Dick, great to have you here again.
It's always fun. And there's always something to talk about. It's something new every time.
We don't run out of stuff to talk about, do we?
I assume this is going to be a 3-hour podcast.
Dick, we're really happy you were able to be among those participating this past week in the Princeton Smart Driving Car Summit, which is continuing live through mid-April on Thursday afternoons at noon Eastern. And the discussions have been focused, really important, in trying to move the needle, as you've put it, Alain. This past week, the panel included leadership from Waymo, Ford, May Mobility, and Local Motors. First of all, Alain, congratulations on putting that together. Really amazing.
Well, yeah, it was easy. I mean, everybody just wants to cooperate, and in some sense, maybe the only silver lining in the whole COVID thing. Everybody realized that you can almost do it from the comfort of your home or the uncomfort of your home, and come in and everybody's nicely relaxed and so on. And it's worked out very well. I know for the audience, it's not as good as being there and so on, but we really have tried to bring the audience in on it, have a discussion, and really learn. It's all about trying to know what we don't know and figure it out and moving forward.
And Dick, like I said, we're glad you were able to participate as well. And what were some of the takeaways for you from this past session?
I thought it was. I think all the sessions have been very, very good. It is very impressive. The thing that impressed me the most was the comment by John Rich from Ford, because you see the automobile and the technology companies have invested 120 billion, 150 billion maybe in this technology, and you kind of wonder, why are they doing this? There's a lot of skepticism about the size of the market and when are they going to actually roll it out, and that's been going slowly. But John said his belief is there will be 2 winners. I think the interesting thing from that is, number one, there's going to be winners. So they see a huge market for themselves, and that there's going to be maybe only 2 of them. He thought maybe 2, maybe plus 1, smaller one. So I look at that and say, that's really optimistic. And they are very enthusiastic about the market. They're going to start to have their deployment starting next year. But he was talking about there being a very, very large market for it. Obviously, he thinks he didn't say this, but I assume he believes Ford will be one of the winners. But that means we're going to start seeing this stuff on large scale. And he didn't talk exactly about what markets he's going to go after, but they did talk about this is going to bring the cost of driving down to 20 cents a mile. It's not quite free, but getting close to that. And I'm assuming they're going to be in the shared mobility model. And there he's looking at it on a metropolitan level basis. He didn't say we're going to go after the suburbs. We're not going to go after just Phoenix. We're not going to go after. But anyway, it was a very optimistic, to me anyway, a point of view. And the other related news that we heard this week was Toyota is jumping into it. So
with the same partner, right? I mean, they both are partnered with Aurora.
Yeah, but the big companies are so enthusiastic about this. Waymo was on there. They're not saying they're pulling back. They're getting into trucks and everything. These guys still believe there's a huge market out there, and they're going to be in it, and it's going to be happening fairly soon.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Dick. And again, we don't want to put any words in the John's mouth in terms of what he said, or in some sense what we heard. I think to me, the important piece of what John said, besides what you pointed out or you sort of suggested, they're not really going after, we're going to put these things in showrooms and have individuals go out and buy them. At least that's 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 what it seemed to me, or maybe that's what I wanted to hear. So I'm not sure, which one of the for which reasons, but that really they're looking at the mobility market and providing mobility out there and seeing this and doing it at a thinking that they can do it at a very low cost, meaning that they can the value that they then can charge for is such that there's something left over for between what they get and what they have to pay to put it out there, so that they have something to put in their pocket. So that in fact there is a fundamental motivation to this private sector, as opposed to going to Washington and saying, alms for the poor, bail me out here. We don't know what to do. Tell us what to do. What's your reaction to what I think I heard, or what I'm, filling in some gaps, which is not exactly what he said.
Well, I think the other thing, there's some conversation also about having to have connected vehicles. Do you need to have DSRC out there? Do you need to have sensors along the roadway and interacting with the infrastructure? And a couple of people asked that question, and both Waymo and Ford said, no, we're not going to wait. First of all, they're not going to wait for that. They can't wait for it. They did say, if it happens, we're happy. They weren't against it, but they said that's not part of their business model. So they're not going to be, the EV companies may be going to Washington and asking for a handout, but these guys aren't.
Yeah, and I guess we've been sort of talking about that for some time. I guess the only thing that they've asked the public sector to put out there is to fill the potholes and put in put some paint on the road and make your signs so that they're readable, and what you would do for those of us who you continue to use our eyes, nose, ears, and whatever to drive our own cars. What's been put out there for us to be able to do it. That's all we want. That's all we need. We don't need we don't have to implant in everybody a little microchip in their head. The DSRC, the who, what to see around the corner. If you can't see around the corner, slow down. Okay. Damn it. Why do you have to go through there so fast?
Yeah. Well, the other thing I think was interesting was no one mentioned COVID. None of these guys said, we're going to wait for all this stuff to be over. The sense I got, although I didn't say it this way, but the sense I got was, once we like the technology and we believe it works, we're going out there. I mean, John mentioned they already have, they're testing their cars in 6 metropolitan areas. So they're ready to go, and they're not going to wait for the government. They're not going to wait for COVID to be over.
Yeah, and I think to emphasize a point that you just made, that they're focused on safety and making sure that this is safe. At least the way I hear it. They're concerned more about making sure that this is safe than anybody in Washington could ever be concerned about it being safe. I mean, they realize that they're betting the ranch on this being safe, and I think they even said they want to cooperate on safety. They don't want to compete on safety. It's important that they all be safe, and I think they said that right at the very beginning on top, making sure there's not a bunch of folks out there trying to do a big stunt, whatever that be risk and all that junk. They're looking to build a business. And they realize that business, if it's not safe, they're not in business.
Yeah, and there's some mention that Uber, who had the horrible crash in Tempe, is basically out of the business.
Yeah,
they sold it to Aurora, and that says that was one major fatality, and that killed that company. So they're certainly aware of it.
Yeah, they said that. I mean, I know I've written that or something, suggested that in fact, that's a real reason why Uber had to, really had to get out of that sector. Now, hopefully, I can't. Uber hopes that Aurora is able to make that work, and then offer it to Uber at a reasonable price, so Uber can continue its business model. Maybe Aurora is going to go out and take that what they build and say, we'll compete with you, Uber. What do we need you guys for? We'll do it. We'll wait and see how that one plays out.
Well, the other thing is, the cost is coming way down, and then that I think, I think about this stuff as being an economist. If the cost comes down a lot, it's not quite free, but it's getting close to it. And if you really have low cost transportation, that means everybody has access to jobs, no matter where you are. If you live in a low income area or high income area, you can find work any place in the metropolitan area, and you can afford to get there. And I think this has huge economic and social benefits. So I can't wait to see this stuff get out there.
Yeah, and I think for those that are afraid, oh my goodness, all these poor people not getting to jobs across the city, or they're going to congest our road and we won't be able to go it or whatever. I mean, the whole concept of doing this in a shared basis and a shared ride basis. Why do you want to go alone if the darn vehicle is there for you to go and you hop in with somebody? Come on, let's get social again.
Well, I we'll have to see how people react to COVID. Well, you make the point about you think it'd be a mistake to put cars into showrooms, and I was listening to the conversation, and the question is, will everybody be a winner? Will all the companies out there be winners? And the sense I got was probably not. There will be a few winners. So I could imagine one of these companies who is not doing as well. They may say, okay, we've lost the market. We're not one of the top 2 or 3. We'll sell our cars to the public. So I could imagine there will be at some point, and probably not for another 5 years, 10 years, that there'll be at least one of these companies putting the cars on the showroom. So I think there will be an opportunity for people to buy a private autonomous vehicle, but probably only after the shared market has developed.
Yeah, I agree with you that in fact the opportunity for more players is through selling to individuals, for them to own or to use or to buy or whatever. But as we know, transportation is a utility in a sense. We know that if you reduce the number of players, there are economies of that scale that basically force it to utility type, one player, 2 players. If we talk about sharing rides, if there's a let's say an Uber and a Lyft right next to it, how one gets in an Uber, one gets on a Lyft, they both could have gotten in that one Uber if Uber was just there. So there are some fundamentals of that sort of driving to there being fewer in the mobility delivery sector of this market than there are in hey, I'm going to sell you something that you brag to your neighbors about that you have in your driveway.
Yeah, no. I think it is important to have at least a couple of companies in each metropolitan area. A little bit of competition helps a lot, and I'm glad Uber does not have a monopoly.
Yeah, no, I mean I agree with you, and it doesn't, because we saw that with Didi. I mean Didi, oh hey, at least we're going to compete with you in China now. What how you compete globally and all that stuff, and that to do.
Alan, on this private ownership issue, you highlight in the newsletter a report from the University of Leeds called, the headline is, "To Own or Not to Own, That's the Question, the Value of Owning a Fully Automated Vehicle." And this is a paper that's published in Science Direct, and it says it finds substantial inconvenience value associated with shared automated ride service. And they're saying ownership is inherently valued more compared to ride services by women. So, I mean, you started to get into this. And,
yeah, well, I don't want to get into the gender thing because just don't want to go there. I don't think that I don't think that, I'd say, I don't think that's important, but whatever. I don't want to go there. With respect to the owning versus using that thing, sure, there's a lot of value in owning, having it all for myself to use whenever I want to do it's just there, all the anxiety relief because I have it. There's also a cost associated with owning, which I don't believe they took into account in this thing. And that's the responsibility of owning something. And maybe I just think it too much in my own thought process, but it's a pain in the butt to own some stuff because I have to maintain the damn thing. Okay, even my home here, it's great owning money, I pay the taxes, which is just totally ignored. Gotta maintain this thing that's 200 years old, built in 1820. Holy hell, I look around, man, whoa, the maintenance and what it take on to do that. I got hire guys and whatever to do. I mean, and I don't think they, and I guess what I've been suggesting with respect to a driverless vehicle, if I own one and I send it out and go give Dick a ride someplace with it, and Dick takes his ride with it, and then, get it to come back home to me, I'm not there. I'm responsible. I'm responsible for when that thing is taking Dick for a ride. Now, of course, I'm totally irresponsible. I won't care if it crashes and kills Dick. Really? So who covers my responsibility? Do I sit at home and worry about this thing that I have out there without me close to it? They didn't consider that. I think, to me, for some reason, I think that's not. So I call up Mike Scrudon. Mike, give me some insurance. Is that going to be enough for me?
Well, even if you're not sending it out for Dick, if it's yourself.
If I'm out there giving Dick a ride, I'm doing donuts on the highway and going speeding, going through red lights, But for some reason, I don't know, I'm there. So therefore, but if all of a sudden that technology is doing it, what's my mind frame going to have to be about how well that sucker is going to have to work? So I don't have to worry about, Dick's wife coming after me. What the hell did you do with my husband?
Well,
no, I mean, I don't know. Not
Las Vegas. I'm gone.
No. I understand. I mean, Elizabeth, would you be really happy if you did that to me? No, I mean, whatever. No, but seriously, I mean, there is, especially with this thing, that somehow is doing things. Well, the only reason you would is to do things and probably do things for others rather than yourself. If you're there, I mean, you could, that's not it. The thing with this thing is it could go out there and you have to be able to, it has to be able to do it by itself. To go from here to the Princeton shopping center to go get my groceries, it's got to make sure it doesn't hit a kid with a ball on the way.
I think one of the issues, Alan, is there's an awful lot of stuff we just do not know.
Yeah, I know.
We don't know how these things will really work. Yeah, and it may be, once they're out there, you look at what happened with Tesla. It's not driverless, but it has a lot of weird, neat things in it, and people like it. But it took them a while to like it. Once people get used to driving around in these autonomous vehicles in their neighborhood, they may say, "Okay, it works, and I want to own one." I'm several years away from that, and
and us as individuals, I don't think the interesting thing that happened on Thursday with all four folks that we had on there when we said, hey, if you're out there providing the mobility for others, how do you address this? Because now you're the one that's responsible. They're going to come after you if something happens. and how do you get yourself? And that's why I made this statement earlier that in fact, these folks take this safety thing certainly as seriously as anybody in Washington, anybody in Trenton, if not absolutely more, because in fact, they have everything riding on the fact that it doesn't hit a kid running after a ball when this thing is out there giving me a ride.
Well, you're bringing up Tesla, Dick, a minute ago. In this week's edition of the newsletter, Alan, you highlight a report from Russ Mitchell in the LA Times, headlined "Biden Inherits Big Traffic Safety Mess." And Russ points to videos of Tesla owners abusing autopilot and to the company's software package, which they label full self-driving.
Yeah, I mean, and we discussed that, and I forgot who it was asked questions directly to our panelists on Thursday in terms of, or I guess it was Russ that came on and asked.
Right, it was, and John Rich gave a very pointed reply.
And John Rich gave a very pointed reply. And again, I don't want to speak for John. You can watch the replay or something and see what John said. But those folks, as each of us, all of us here have been saying, look, Elon, you have a great vehicle. Dick Mudge owns one. I'm thinking of buying one. Fred's thinking of buying one, and so on. But come on, treat us like adults and quit overselling this sucker. And in fact, tell the folks what's in the fine print of your manual, not what you do and want to have a peeing contest with John Krafchick at whatever and Waymo or whatever the heck else you're doing. Come on. I mean, yeah, we all appreciate your product, but you don't have to go that far. And in some sense, I guess the Germans are getting ready or have, to completely whack them on this thing and so on. I don't think they're even allowed to offer it in Europe. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's sort of what's in my brain, may not be true. And whatever, look, it is a good system. It does provide some comfort and convenience, but if it's going to provide comfort and convenience for me, it can't make me less safe. And Elon's even argued that, oh my goodness, you've got to let me do this because if I save just one life, it's valid. And I agree with that argument. But in giving me the comfort and convenience, you may not be saving my, and then overselling it. And therefore I have some visions that I can just hop in the back seat and do whatever the hell I want, like I was 16 years old or something like that, whatever. That makes it so that you don't save one additional person, you kill one additional person. So all of a sudden, all the stuff you're putting out there is, and I think that's what Russ was trying to point out in that article. And he came out on Thursday and he asked the question directly and they answered it. Dick, what do you think?
Yeah, it was great. I think it gets off topic a little bit, but the article in the Times raises questions. Will there be more regulation? I mean, at the moment, we've had both with the Obama administration and the Trump administration, almost no regulation. In fact, deliberately standing back. And you have a new administration. They may look at this differently and want to have some regulations. Congress is never able to pass a legislation. There may be something new coming.
Yeah, and I think I argue that it's been appropriate for them to not have regulation because you didn't know what to regulate. We did not know enough to regulate, and there wasn't enough out there to regulate. So we were out there learning and so on, and that's good. And it's, as I say one more time, it's good to have the industry out there really focused on safety, not focused immediately on making a buck, but focused on safety. And so therefore the reason to do the regulation may not even be there. But all of a sudden, if they then argue that they want to do regulation because Elon's out there, espousing something that just really does get people into trouble and takes away the fundamental safety value of what he's putting out there, then that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a risk He talks as if it is the fully autonomous vehicle, which it's not, obviously not. And that may get people reacting to the good guys.
Yeah, so whatever.
Alan, the state of California has released the data submitted by autonomous vehicle operators last year. There was less testing during the pandemic, not really a surprise there, but still nearly 2 million miles logged in autonomous mode on public roads. Waymo and Cruise, no surprises there, I suppose, leading the way.
Yeah, and also I think the number of disengagements per mile, or the number of miles between disengagements, went up, I don't know, close to an order of magnitude, substantially. And of course, everybody, appropriately says, just that rate is not the measure. And I'll say I agree with that. Actually, the reason you do testing is to find disengagements. You're looking for the places where the thing doesn't work, and you have to disengage it so that you can go back and fix it. Going and redoing stuff that you already know. I mean, just so that, really, people are out there doing the numbers. I mean, the only people that are doing that are people that are trying to flip their business. And in fact, one of the really things that we should look over is who's looking to flip or who's looking to do. And for those that are looking to flip, we should say, hey, cut it out, whatever. Those are really looking to do are out there. They really want to maximize the number of disengagements per mile of testing out there. Find the maximum number of places they need to avoid. And I think one of the things that John made in the summit on Thursday, he said we don't talk about geofencing. We talk about geo-network. In other words, identifying the subset of roads and intersections that really would provide the most mobility opportunity for the area that we want. And that'd be the smallest amount that we need and the safest amount that we need, that are the safest, so as to be able to deliver that mobility. So it's not, we're going to do all the streets within here. There's this street, that intersection. We've tested that. We can do that. We've gone in there. We've had no disengagements in that. All of a sudden over here, oh my goodness, we haven't fixed that one yet. We're going to avoid it. We're not going to go there. We're going to provide the mobility. We'll go around it. There's been since the beginning of this, all this discussion about, what's it going to do with construction zones. Thing to do with construction, two things. One, slow down. Why do you need to go there at speed? Okay. The second thing, avoid it. Okay. And in fact, well, we won't be able to get between A and B. Well, then work with the entity and so on and say, hey, don't close all the places to get from A to B. Okay. Or don't work on, structure your work. Do that kind of cooperative thing as opposed to the way it's been talked about for now. So again, disengagements. You want, if you're doing efficient testing, you're finding a lot of disengagements because you're out there trying to provide more mobility. You're trying to expand your capabilities. You're not out there just running around in circles on some test track that you can do out in Nevada where there's nobody. What do you think, Dick?
Well, California certainly, Alan, is doing a real service to us all by having the companies submit all of this and then making it public.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think what we saw from Waymo a month ago when they divulged, basically a reporting on every one of their either disengagements or thoughts that, hey, we were maybe close here or whatever in terms of their incidents, or when somebody went in there and hit them. Again, it's not that there's not going to be any crashes with these things. A meteorite can come out of the sky and plop on it, boom, tree can come down, boom, right on top of it. There are situations in which physics isn't going to help you, okay, because of the physics of the other thing. Or me driving, who knows what, having too much to drink and whatever, going through a red light and T-boning a Waymo. Okay? I mean, what's it going to do?
Yeah. I think two things interesting. California has been open with a lot of that data. That's it's important for getting the public to feel better about it, and there must be some competitive information in there as well, which is good.
Yeah, and they're sharing, and I think, and they're in there, it'd be nice if there was more sharing, and I got the indication that the industry really wants more sharing, would appreciate more sharing. I didn't hear anything from Dan Smith suggesting that Waymo, oh no, nobody, we're out there the leaders, and nobody's going to find out what the hell we know about safety. I don't think it was that at all.
Well, as you said, they clearly, none of these guys wants to compete on safety. No one's going to say we have the safest car out there. That's not the way they're going to compete, which is the right way to, which is very encouraging.
Yeah, and the comment I made on Thursday, and I think I was right. If you look at the Alain Hirschberg crash, before that, Toyota was out there testing. Okay. I think Toyota in a whole last year, Toyota Research Institute had only like 5-7 vehicles on California roads running. They ran just a few 600 miles or something like that. They completely shut down, as soon as that thing hit the newspapers, and have barely come back out and done anything. And of course, we read now that they've decided to nuzzle up and go in with Aurora, which is fantastic for Aurora and for them. Essentially, it put somebody else's crash, put them out of business on this stuff. Okay, one crash by somebody else. That's a if that doesn't tell you, you better all be safe on this thing, and if there's any crazy out there, they're going to find a way to settle them down.
Very interesting. Well, we'll be back with more, but first, this is a good time to remind you about our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. To get more info, head to motoetf.com. On the website, we want to point out it's a good idea to read a white paper. It's titled The Smart Transportation Revolution. You can find it under the Insights and News tab. Some great information there to help you make informed decisions about investing. ETFs, you may know, can be a good way to spread risk with investments and focus on a particular category of stocks. The site, once again, is motoetf.com. Some more headlines to touch on this week, Alan. A report from the European Commission's Joint Research Center and the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity is looking at cybersecurity risks connected to artificial intelligence and autonomous vehicles.
Well, I don't know. I guess Dick and I can discuss that. Unfortunately, my own mind on the cybersecurity thing is it's oversold or something. I'm so frustrated by the whole darn thing. I'm frustrated about how this great internet has turned out to be an unsocial media. I'm just frustrated by the whole darn thing. How a few people have taken something that is really good and basically made it almost unusable. I tell my class or discuss with my class some examples that we won't mention here, and it is just here you're trying to do all this good for society, as Dick has pointed out, as we point out, provide mobility, provide equal mobility for everybody, improve people's quality of life, and so on. And you're going to have some who knows what in their basement sitting there and directing vehicles to crash because of some who knows unfortunate who knows what in the whole thing, to be able to do that. Really, I mean, we're going to put up with that as a society. We're not going to whack those kids on, say, play your video games in the basement. Don't do that. And if we look around, I guess the comment that I put in the newsletter, if we look around, look at the overpasses on the New Jersey Turnpike, what do they have? They have screening, on the walkways to make sure that some kid, make sure some kid doesn't come there with a bowling ball and drop it on the cars coming by underneath. I mean, we've always had the opportunity to be a bad actor in this transportation system that we have. Up to now, it just required screening, which is about as ugly as you can get, which is really unfortunate, but we do the screening. I guess we put bars on some windows so that, at night somebody doesn't come in and break the glass and go take the jewels out of Hamilton Jeweler's window. I mean, sure. But also we have a judicial system that goes out and really somewhat whacks and puts the people in jail that do that thing. And hopefully we have an education system in the K through 5 or something, or in the lower schools that say, look, you don't do this thing. So I think, and we have to say that with respect to going in there and playing with your computer, that, oh, look at what I did, and look at how great I am. I caused the car to crash on the New Jersey Turnpike. And that has to be through education completely wiped out of the system, because otherwise, we won't be able to, or too many potential kids out there just wanting to have some fun. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on it. Now, if it's, the 9/11 crew that wants to go out there and do this, I don't think we can stop them. I think in that one, in that sort of situation, that's tough. And if we're gonna worry about a 9/11 crew coming in there and saying, hey, my goodness, now it's the mobility system in Trenton, New Jersey, that's trying to provide mobility to the poor to go get $15 an hour jobs and go to their synagogue or whatever, then we're going to lose that one probably. I don't know what we can do to stop that one, okay? And especially if now Washington has DSRC or who knows what RC and VDQ RSG communications on top of all this stuff. I don't know. I'm going to go play golf. We're going to stop doing these things and I'm done. That is tough. That's the one that's worth worrying about. I think the kids, hopefully we can do that with education, and we can say, hey, play your video games, do your esports, go on social media and whatever your friends. I don't know. What do you think about that one?
I think still, I agree with you. Some of the stuff about cybersecurity, I think is exaggerated. I view that as partly people look at autonomous vehicles and realize this is the most exciting thing happening in transportation, and they all want to get in the middle of it and say, "This is an area I know, and so I'm gonna pontificate about it." No, the only one I agree with you about the 9/11 type people, and I'm not sure how you control that. I can imagine a few ways, but the general cybersecurity thing, I don't think you can touch the cars anyway. You can go after Tesla's headquarters.
Yeah, and of course, if they're not connected, as the folks were telling us on Thursday, we don't need the connection to do this. And
that's right.
Stuff is being done internally, then it's really tough. And it's not cybersecurity to go out there and put some mask on top of a stop sign so the car doesn't recognize it's a stop sign anymore. I mean, we've had the opportunity to do that anyway. Half the people in Princeton, I think, grow trees in front of stop signs in their yards so that I can't see them, and whatever. But that's not.
Dan from Waymo made it clear during the last session that they are not remotely controlling in any way, shape, or form their vehicles out there.
I thought again that needs to be put out there. I love what they said. If they've been out there and spent who knows what for the last 11 years trying to do this, they must realize that in fact the bandwidth that's required to do this for more than one or two vehicles, and to do it within the reaction times that you need to do things, is just, we're not there. We're not, and to rely on it. It's bad enough that we don't want blue screens on the systems that we have inside the car, and therefore to build the redundancies there. But if you look at them doing this over wireless communication, I can't drive from here to Mays Landing and be on the phone the whole time because I go through the Pine Barrens, and guess what? There must not be a tower within who knows what, and there probably shouldn't be. Okay. And you know, it's anybody thinking about doing the thinking where you're going to put a bunch of people in a mountain, you know, carved out mountain, like you're doing a drone that's going to who knows where to drop a bomb, whatever. No, first of all, how many drones are they controlling? And two, I mean, the drones are out there. I mean, that's easy, you know, as long as you can make sure GPS doesn't get corrupted.
Moving on in the newsletter, Alan, The Verge reports that Uber and Lyft in their new quarterly earnings are getting, quote, less unprofitable. And you have an interesting analysis.
Yeah, sure. Great. You know, they can be really less unprofitable if they just go out of business. They get to go to zero. Okay. The problem is that they're out there with a certain valuation. And sure, you know, we have GameStop and all that stuff out there, and we can have whatever the exuberance of it do. But at some point, you know, you've got to earn it. So that means you have to have a profit level that is big enough to reflect what your valuation is.
Well,
you do that.
Drive you have the same sort of thing. All the Auroras of the world have massive valuations, and they don't have a single revenue. When I think about what Waymo's doing, as you said, they've been in the business 11 years. They're clearly putting a lot of money still into the business. They obviously believe there's a huge market there for that. And I find that very encouraging.
They obviously believe, because as we know, supposedly the market is not the current capabilities, it's the expected capabilities in the future. They have a roadmap out there. They have a number of roadmaps out there. They've done the distributions and the risks and all that stuff and so on. And they see that, and they probably also include societal value in there, because, you know, I think every company, most companies want to do good as well as want to make money. And when they look at that, they see, oh my goodness, this is still a valuable thing to do. Now, Uber and Lyft can have that same thing. The only problem, in my view, is that you look at any of those trajectories going forward in time, if they don't have driverless, if they have to continue to pay a living wage to the person doing the driving, which they should, those trajectories don't go to profitability.
I think if you have a company that is perceived as doing good, as being good for society, that will be good for their market.
Sure.
If you have a company that's perceived as not doing that, no one's going to use their product. So there is a link between making money and also doing good for society.
I absolutely agree. You know, and when I talk about it, I talk about value, you know, and one of the components is dollars, Deutschmarks, RMBs, you know, whatever you want to call them, euros or whatever. And the other is all the other things And in the sense, we have people in the loop, and most people like to go to bed happy at night, wake up happy in the morning. They don't want
Yeah,
to,
and I,
what the hell, how much money do I have in Bitcoin? Kidding me? I don't know.
Another story to touch on here, Alan. Shell has announced plans to roll out 500,000, that's 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations. Talking about a pivot.
Yeah, I mean, what that hit me with is that we are in a transition here. I think not only in terms of the automation of the vehicle, but what the energy source that is used to be able to do that. And historically we've built enormous companies, Shell, Exxon, that have been focused on the stuff that comes out of the ground, and that basically oozed out of the ground in Oil City, Pennsylvania. Comes out of the ground essentially I like to say it might cost more to keep it in the ground in Saudi Arabia than it is to take it out of the ground. I know that that's a flippant statement, but it really, and they've profited from that. And I'm just wondering whether or not these giants are going to be like other companies that have sort of lost their market power and then just packed it in. Sears, for example. I mean, Sears catalog to me is exactly the same as Amazon today.
yeah.
I mean, really, okay, mediums, it's a lot easier to do, but in some sense, why didn't Sears do that? Why didn't Sears become Amazon, or Blockbuster with respect to Netflix, or Kodak with respect to CCD? Kodak developed the CCD chip, put them out of business. And here we have these oil companies for which now we're doing batteries or who knows what, or and are they gonna then shrivel to be a Sears or a Blockbusters or Kodak or whatever, or are they somehow really looking at this, have a bunch of assets, do this, see that that's an opportunity, know the business that they're dealing with in terms of supplying it to mobility and stuff, and all of a sudden pick up and I look at this for show that say, well, hell, hey, what's the difference between us putting gasoline in your tank to doing electricity? In fact, you pull up there, your car has to do that for 20 minutes or 10 minutes. You're going to go inside now this marketplace that we have in the thing, and you're going to money's going to come out of your pockets.
That's true, and they have all these properties. That's another issue, right?
Gas. You're going to buy, ice cream and milk and and maybe you can get your hair cut. It might become a new shopping center. I don't know. I mean,
a lot of that says, how do you define your business?
Yeah.
You say you're in the energy business rather than oil and gas.
Yeah.
Bezos started out as being in the book business. If he defined himself as being in the book business, Amazon would be a very popular book company. That's it. Yeah. He defined it as much broader than that.
So I look at this as another one of the possible decisions that really they're making internally to say, we're not just going to stick with the Sears catalog.
Well, they can read the writing on the wall, and there's a bill in Washington expanding the qualified plug-in electric drive motor vehicle credit. And that could give Tesla access to $7,000 tax credits on 400,000 more electric cars in the US, and help all the other electric makers along with it, right?
Yeah, so Dick's going to go out and buy a second Tesla because
absolutely, yeah.
Sucker. and as I wrote, hey, I may end up using the $1,000 that I sent Elon when he said, "Oh, send $1,000, you can be put in line, first in line for a Model 3," and I couldn't send that sucker fast enough.
Well,
The hell do I need another car for? I mean,
well,
I don't go anywhere.
Well, that's true.
yeah, if they're going to give you a $7,000 credit, perhaps, and then there's a New Jersey credit on top of that, and no sales tax in New Jersey on electric vehicles.
I mean,
The incentives are going to make it very, very attractive.
They should buy 2 or 3.
Yeah, no. I mean, I used to come into my class and with an ad, you know, when trying to sell you cars, you get $3,000 back if you buy a, you know, Ford F-150 in 2000 or something like that. You know, I come into class. Oh, look at what I found! I found that they're going to give me 3,000 if I buy one. I'm going to buy 10. You know, hey. I mean, think about what it does to your mind to go out there to and you look at one side of it, not the rest of it, and all of a sudden, you know, these madmen on Madison Avenue know what the hell they're doing. You know, to reach into our pockets.
Well, there's still some debate about the zero emission vehicles. GM is in partnership with Navistar, saying it will focus on fuel cell powertrains for long haul trucks. While in Europe, Scania, if that's how it's pronounced, part of the Volkswagen Group, has said it's abandoning its fuel cell truck program to focus on battery power. And you had some comments in the newsletter on that.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, we at Princeton, we were looking in the hydrogen economy to provide energy for mobility. And, you know, it was a great idea then. It's still a great idea today. The question is all the folk, and I also like to point out again to my students, if you look at where the money was spent in the Apollo program, an enormous amount of money was spent on a thing that didn't work in Apollo 13, you know, the fuel cell. And you know, yeah, great. We may get autonomous vehicles and driverless vehicles before we have hydrogen. I don't know. It's yes, great. Keep going. You got to get it going. I mean, you got to get. It's the same. It's partially the same problem we're having with the driverless business. You've got to get started, and the thing that you start can't be the Morgantown PRT system. You know, great system. It's been absolutely safe for 45 years. Provided wonderful mobility. It just never scaled. They did one, and that's it. And nobody looked at it and said, and nobody at Madison Avenue, or nobody in the investment community, and nobody in the government communities, and nobody in the whatever community said, holy mackerel, that's a great thing. We should grow it. Right now, with driverless vehicles, we only have Waymo, one place in the world. Forget what you read they're not doing it. They have, you know, one place in the world with a couple hundred trips a day. I think that's what Dan said. You know, replay what Dan said. That's all we have. We're in 2021. Let's hope that's not a Morgantown, that it is something that maybe expands in Phoenix, maybe comes to Trenton and expands to Mercer County, expands to New Jersey, maybe goes to Greenville, South Carolina with Fred Payne and grows there and grows bigger. Maybe it goes to Washington, D.C. I don't think you go to Manhattan. Maybe you do San Francisco. I doubt it. Maybe Mountain View, Palo Alto, East Jesus, Ohio. It's got to go somewhere else. It's got to grow. It's got to scale. Otherwise, it's a research project. People get tenure. Wonderful.
And that is the point of the Smart Driving Cars Summit, which will continue once again this Thursday at noon, every Thursday at noon live through the middle of April. There's more information about registering at smartdrivingcar.com, and you can get information there too about maybe becoming a sponsor. looking ahead to looking ahead to this Thursday, Alan.
I'm
top-
never good at revenue. I'm just the worst guy on the revenue side. But go
That's
ahead.
why we brought the economist with us.
I
Steve.
know. Yeah, he's kicking my butt.
Well, we're looking ahead to this Thursday, Alan. The topic is going to be who will build, sell, and maintain driverless cars. Another important session.
Yes, and we're looking to do, and again, the focus is on the driverless, and in part, are we going to own them? Is it going to be fleets? How do they do that? How, whatever, is it? At times, I've in the past I've suggested that the technology is like a goose laying golden eggs. Once you get that goose laying golden eggs, do you really want to sell the goose? Or do you want to just sit there and harvest the golden eggs as they're produced day in, day out, and so on? So, in some sense, if one looks at from the outside, me looking from the outside looking into Waymo, it looks like they want to keep the goose. Aurora, it looks like they want to sell the goose. To somebody, in the end, if it was, good economics, help me out here, Dick, those are indifferent, buyers sell you, they should, come to equilibrium is the same thing. Talk to me here, Dick.
Yeah, but I think what they find that the interesting thing is they want to sell anything that moves. All these companies are getting into automated trucks.
Yeah.
And so it's expanding. They think they have the technology that works. They want to automate anything that moves.
Yeah.
And I mean, that
moves on our streets, on our public roadways. I mean, because why? The public roadways are there in some sense, the big market for these things is already paying for that. Now, as the thing scales and as it becomes bigger part of the entity, they're going to have to pick up the tab on the public roadway maintenance and all that stuff. But, but that's, sure, of course, but then they'll have the scale to be able to do it. And there are, to me, there still seems to be fundamental economies of scale on this thing, that economies of scale drive economics, don't they, Dick? Or talk
I think it's all about network scale. If you do things on a network scale, that changes the economy. The interstate highway system is a classic example.
Yeah.
That generated 50% to 60% annual returns over 2 decades.
Yeah.
That's the type of thing that venture capitalists dream for.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about here is scale also. And they're building it off of the public sector infrastructure that's been built, that it's nationwide, and they don't have to pay for that. They have to pay for the marginal cost. And what they all want to do is to be able to have the scale to be in every major metropolitan area, maybe the scale to be handling all the trucks. That's where they make more money. That's also places where you change the economy for the good. And you have, and that's what the internet did. That's what wireless telecommunication did. Those are all network scale things that changed our daily lives. It also changed the economy. And that's what they see. And I, from my point of view, the sooner we get there, the better.
Yeah, to me, I agree with you there. I am definitely not an economist. I don't think I ever took an economics course, but whatever, that doesn't matter. But you do this with economics, not regulation. And in fact, I think through history, one has to look at history and say, my goodness, the thing that propelled economic activity throughout history was mobility and the reduction in cost of mobility. It's so fundamental. I mean, it is just, you look at what the Roman roads did, you look at what shipping did, and Columbus, blah, 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 and so on and so forth with Venetians and whatever. And then you look at the railroads in the US, and then you look at the interstate highway system, and you look at the roadway network. And now we have the opportunity to take, one of the cost elements out of this thing, that is the human cost. And that human cost out of there and reduce it and replace it with Moore's law.
Yeah.
Goodness.
And I think that opens up, that opens up things for individuals, but also for business. If you're a business company, you can now have access to labor of anybody in the entire metropolitan area.
Yeah,
And it's huge.
it's
Good for
huge.
the individuals, it's good for the companies.
And those that are worried about the energy utilization, in fact, you can do it so that the energy utilization is better. And you can do it if it's organized. You can actually put it together if there's an organization scheme on it so that it isn't as inefficient in its utilization as the current system that we have that basically uses capacity as if it's whatever. You have all those opportunities. I don't know. It seems to be a lot of winning opportunities here, aren't there?
I do think there are people who are concerned about the environment and concerned about VMT, and they think there should be less mileage, and this is going to create more. And I think that's a fundamental battle that has yet to start.
But my argument on that one is the people that talk about VMT think that there's a one-to-one relationship between PMT and VMT.
Yeah.
Not necessarily true.
No, you're right.
People in there. That's not so bad. Guess what? You've chopped the VMT in half and still have the PMT. And what's important, it's the PMT, the personal travel. It is about us, not the car. Everybody in Washington worries about the car. Cut it out.
Well, Dick, you've just made it very clear why we were so happy to have you join us.
Yeah, no, we have a good time.
Really terrific, Dick.
Anyway.
It is always fun.
It's always fun. It is very serious business. There are some real fundamentals here, and I think it's the fundamentals that are really important. And the fundamentals are, really good towards this.
And on that note, let's say thank you to our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO, and you can find more information at motoetf.com. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Anchor FM, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Spreaker, SoundCloud, wherever you turn to for your podcasts. You can get your smart speaker to play us too. You can find my tech reports at textination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alain Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching, and please stay safe.
Stay safe, everybody. Nice to have you with us, Fred, Dick. So nice. Enjoy, and see you Thursday.